Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo. I almost messed up my intro right there. I'm super excited to be doing another In Conversation episode, and this one was actually inspired by Taji. And it is whether or not to binge series or to binge an author's backlist, because I am 100% averse. But today's topic is going to be super exciting because I know we have a different and varying amount of opinions on binging. And I'm super curious to hear everyone's thoughts. But let me first introduce all the guests that are joining me here today. We have Steph's from Steph's Romance Book Talk. We have Sam from Sam Reads a Little. And then we have Taji from Taji's World of Books. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Good.
Good. So the first question, anyone can take this, is what are your thoughts on binging either a series or an author's backlist?
For me personally, if it's a series, I'm going to binge it. Backlist, not so much.
And does that series have to be like a continuous story? Or would you still binge like a series, like if it's like interconnected or like one story following one
just
couple?
Interconnected. Either one, really.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I'm not a binger unless it's an author that I know or have read before. And I normally will read something that's new. So like if it's a new to me author, I'll read whatever is placed in front of me. So like the book that sort of introduces me to them. And then if I enjoy their writing, I will go back and read some of their backlists, but I don't necessarily binge the backlist.
And I guess I'm somewhere in between Sam and Steph. Like I absolutely feel like my reading experience is maximized. If I'm in a world, I want to stay in that world. You know, so if they have 5 books, 10 books, I'm going to read all the books in that world so I can really maximize and get the best reading experience, remember the characters, you know, really feel that passion, everything that the author wants me to feel. And then after I finish that series, if I really like that author's writing, then I will want to go back and read their backlist and kind of see what other things or other worlds they've delved in. But when an author releases a book a year, I get so frustrated because I read so much that when I go back to pick up that second book, I'm like, no, wait a minute. Was that the one where they were character and they did this? Or was that, no, I'm getting it mixed up with something else. So I just am all mixed up and it's a mess. So I would rather wait until they release everything and then read it all and be like, oh my God, that was the most amazing ride ever. And I don't think I would have experienced it quite the same way if I spaced it out over 4 years or 3 years or whatever. So
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's
really interesting. So Taji, I was actually like that when I started my reading journey back in 2012 or so time frame. And I would collect all the books from an author. Like if I read one book that I enjoyed or read a blurb back when I was reading blurbs, because I don't do that either anymore. I would collect all the books. Especially if I found out it was a series, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to wait until everything is out. Then I'm going to read it and have that experience type thing. And then I got into the world of ARC reading or advanced reading for authors and things like that. And found myself just going with the flow, sort of. As well as there was a time when there would be a year between each book and things like that. Now authors are popping series books out, 3-4 months at a time. So there isn't that long of a lag when it comes to series as well.
And I definitely think that's the case more with indie authors, like with more traditionally published authors, like it tends like with the Sarah J. Maas's, right? Like we have to wait, for it to come out again. And I'm like, whereas like with some of the indie published, it's like 3 or 4 months. And I'm like, that's much more reasonable than I can dive into. But when, like I said, I'm, reading so much that when I go back, I'm like, it's almost like I go dump. And then unless it's an absolute series that I love, like A Court of Thorn and Roses or some of the other really good stuff, then it's like fresh in my mind and I'm not going to forget it. But otherwise, I'm just like, I'm all confused as to what's going on. So I see you laughing, Sam. Am I like, what did I say?
No, it's Charles.
Nothing. I didn't say anything. I'm merely reacting. I'm merely reacting in this game.
I already know, Charles. Go ahead, say it. I want to hear it. Go ahead. Like you said, we talked about this many times, so lay it out there on it.
No. Like, it wouldn't be a classic, like, me doing a video of you, Taji, if I don't throw you underneath the bus. But I wanted to do this topic because Taji has me binging a lot of series, a lot of authors, because we have a lot of fun, exciting things coming up. And I'm 100%, I hate binging authors, series, the whole gambit, because it's like almost like if you eat too much of a, like, one specific thing, like if you ate chicken nuggets for 30 days because you love chicken nuggets, by day 20, you're going to end up hating that chicken nugget. That's how I feel of like binging a series or an author's backlist, because even if I love the author, like all-time favorite, I will start finding flaws the longer I go through, the more I read of their books in one condensed period. Because then things that didn't bother me earlier on, I'm like, wait, you just basically took this plot, changed it a little bit, and now you're doing it over again. I always find flaws. And then slowly the author like goes from 5 stars to 4 stars to 3 stars to 2 stars to 1 star. And
well,
then I'm
that could be
I can't read you anymore.
That could be the author that you're reading.
Thank you.
Hey, I will give an example. Like, I used to be a ride or die Katie Roberts fan. I was on her Patreon. I read everything, and then slowly came to a point where I'm like, okay, this is too much. I'm sorry. I had to bow out now. I had to bow out now because now the ratings are starting to go down. And then everyone loved Neon Gods, and I was like wanting to love that book so much. And I'm
haven't even read it yet.
Like, this doesn't make sense. What is this? How is this? She just wrote Hades in another book. What is she doing right now? And so I get so in my head thinking about stuff, like about the author's work. And I'm like, I can't enjoy it. I need time in between. Like, time for me is like, I probably won't finish the series for like 5 years, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're talking about. There's a romance author, Aurora Rose Reynolds. She has her like Until You series, and then it's like a spinoff of all the kids.
Yep.
And if you read them all, they're very much the same thing.
Oh no!
But I still read them and love them. So, but like they're predictable. You know what's going to happen.
There's so many of those. I haven't even started that series, and they just keep adding on, and I'm like, I guess I'll never start it because there's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Just do my approach. Read one book and then take a 3-year hiatus. And then go, oh, wait, I read that book? Okay, let me go back to book 2. I'm not going to even refresh what happened in book 1. We're just going to go to book 2.
But Charles, I write reviews, and I can just go look on my Goodreads to know if I read a book or not.
Wow, Steph coming out, throwing shade at us who do not write reviews. I got my star rating, and that is it. Because I swear there's been times where people pull up an old review that I did, and I don't even remember writing that review, and saying like, oh, on this book. I was like, I don't even know. I don't remember anything about that book. So I just stick with star rating. Just star rating, and then I never know.
See?
I never know what happened. I never know. I just hope the author gives me enough context clues. I'm like, okay, I got you.
That blurb.
Hey, that's the first thing. Like, as soon as an author releases a new series, I'm like, oh, no. No. I know I'm not going to read these books in a timely manner. Standalones, I'm all over. Interconnected standalones, no. Anytime an author says like could read the other books before reading this one book, I'm like, no. There's usually a catch.
Some authors do that well. There are some authors that do that well, that definitely give you a complete standalone book that, yes, there may be a character feature from, book 1 and book 4 or something like that, but you don't necessarily have to have read book 1 and book 4 to understand book 10 in the series. Then there are some other authors that don't do that did it well, but then all of a sudden didn't do it well. So yeah. Yeah.
That was well said.
No, I'm trying not to like throw any shade because I still love this author. But
Steph, you may want to move like the palm tree out of frame because it's casting a lot of shade right now. Okay, but is there like for you guys, do you have any preferred method of binging? Do you prefer series, author's backlist? Like what do you find yourself typically binging more often? Are you more like a series person or more like you find one book that you love by an author and then everything else, you want to read everything else by that author? So where do you guys kind of land on that?
I tend to be a series reader. Like I like series, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to read everything in the author's backlist unless I've read that series and it was like absolutely one of the best series that I've ever read. Then I want to check out something else that the author did, but I won't do it immediately. Like I'll move on to something else because I want to jump into different worlds and need to experience different things. But I'm definitely, my sweet spot really is like, I don't want it to be a 10, 30 book series, whatever. My sweet spot is like, you know, a trilogy, maybe 4 books, but like no more than that. I think like it doesn't need, a standalone is not enough. And a duet sometimes is just like, they could have done it in a standalone, but they split it up and it's too really short. So that to me is not right. So like a trilogy is a nice sweet spot that gives me just enough. You know,
I am definitely more of a series binger. For some reason, every author that I want to read their backlist, they always have a very extensive backlist. So then I get really intimidated and I don't know where to start. So definitely like a series kind of girl.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I could call myself a series person. I think it depends on the author. So like my favorite author is Alethea Romick, and when she put out a standalone book, end of last year, beginning of this year, I think it was Kingdom Fall. I was blown away by it because I was like, wait, I just read this in one sitting and it's 500 pages and it had all the twists and turns and everything that I absolutely adore and love from Alethea in a standalone. And I was like, wow, she really did the thing. This is why I love her. But at the same time, I'm also reading her Sin series, which from what I understand, I thought it was only supposed to be 3 books. But come to find out there may be a 4th book. But I'm loving all the twists and turns there as well. Fortunately, I'm an ARC reader for her, so I get it before, so I don't have to necessarily wait the length that everyone else has. But she's also gotten to the point where she doesn't have a long time in between projects. She doesn't actually put out a project or a book for a series until she's like 2 or 3 books in. So if it's going to be a 3-book series, she's already written book 1, book 2, and started on book 3 before she puts out book 1, which I absolutely love. On the other hand, there is an author, her name is Lexi C. Foss, and she has a whole bunch of series that I absolutely love that I've read either the complete series of, binged them, or I have, kind of went along as they've released. And she's working in so many different worlds that it does have that difficulty, but she does a really good job of giving sort of a brief at the beginning of the book to sort of reintroduce you into the world that you have waited a year to be back into, which I enjoy as well.
See, now I appreciate that. And that's an author that I wanted to get into because I've seen some reviews on her. She's a paranormal, right? And she writes in like Shifter World, and she's definitely on my TBR. So I haven't made it to her quite yet. But tell me if you guys do this. Sam, you might do this, but I'm such a purist that before I start on an author, because I want to read in order and I don't want to jump around and I don't want to be spoiled. And when I first started reading, I did that and it sort of messed up. When I was reading Cora Riley, like I sort of spoiled, one of the books for me that I really wanted because I read another one that I shouldn't have read before. At any rate, so what I do is I go on and I research to find out I like books in series or books in order to read them to see where it falls and what the recommendation is in terms of how to read it so I don't get spoiled. Do other people do that as well? Like if you're a purist and a series reader, or do you just dive in and say, I'm just
I do that, yeah.
Did you do that?
Oh yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
yes. I've had to do that just because it's not a form. So because I read so many indies, it's not as formatted as say traditional, where traditional will tell you if a book is in a series for the most
Yeah.
part. I shouldn't say always. For the most part, they will tell you if a book is included in a series. Within like the title, it'll be in parentheses. It's part of this series or what have you. Whereas indies, you really sort of have to do the research on the author beforehand to know if it's within a series or within a world type thing. The thing that Willow Winters just did with all of her books, it's so big. It is so big. But she put out the reading order and the lightness and the darkness of her books and which ones flow with each other and things like that. She put out a huge PDF file, and well, not PDF file, but like a poster, and it's two-sided and they're all numbered, and then she also bundled them in 3 volumes, and it was amazing in the best reading order. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that she gives options.
Appreciate that. Yeah,
I had to say about Willow Winters, this is like one of the reasons why I haven't dived into her. Because like you said, she bundles them. But if you like look on Amazon, it doesn't actually, and it's a different title usually. So like you will see
Sometimes
like
they
it
are,
could be like a Merciless trilogy, but it's called like This Love Will Hurt or something. And you're like, wait, what? Like, didn't I just
So
buy that other book?
technically,
And
that isn't part of the. It is part of the Merciless World, but it's not part of the Merciless World.
but
You
you get what
can
I mean?
read,
Like she
yeah,
bundles them and
but
then
you
calls
can
them different titles, but doesn't link you to like what the actual like book by book by book by book by book. So like
right.
when I'm buying like on a sale, I'm like, didn't I buy that book?
But
And then I
that's
find out
also
it was actually included in
so.
another. I'm like, oh, come on.
But that's also so that you can jump in anywhere. So I know exactly which, like the series that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That series can be read by itself, even though it is part of the overarching Merciless World and the Cross Brothers and things like that. They're mentioned in the This Love Will Hurt series, but trilogy. Is it yeah, trilogy. But at the same time, you don't necessarily need to read the Merciless beginning to understand that This Love Will Hurt series. It gives you
And
some
then
aha moments.
And then how does cliffhangers factor into your binging like methods? Like if you know an author does cliffhangers, would you normally wait? Or would you just can't wait and you just have to? But then do you go back and read the other book before the new book comes out? If you're reading them as they drop? I'm very curious because for me, cliffhangers have like no desire. I was talking about one book, I think it was by Kay Webster and Nikki Ash. And then I was talking to the authors, and then I was like, I read book 1. And they're like, you didn't immediately pick up book 2? I'm like, 3 months later, I'm only 2 chapters into book 2. It's just like cliffhangers don't do anything for me. And it doesn't affect my binging because oddly enough, like I'm good at putting together where I'm at in the story, like very quickly. I'm like, okay, I remember you. I remember you. So like for me, it's not always helpful to binge because I don't need that closeness together. But I wonder for you guys, how do you handle cliffies in your romance books?
So I have to know about the cliffhanger. If I am not informed of a cliffhanger, I will rage to all heavens. There will be rage social media posts somewhere if I am blindsided with a cliffhanger. If I know going in that it's a book 1 or it's a book 2 or it's a book 5, then the range is a little lower. And like I said before, I don't necessarily need to have the binging of the series. I like it. It's cool for me if there's multiple books out that I can just get my hands on. But it doesn't really play a factor. But don't blindside me with a with a cliffhanger.
I definitely, Charles, you know me, right? So if a book comes out, like the author that comes to mind is Cassandra Clare, is notorious for that second book to be like just in a trilogy. She's going to destroy you and it's going to end in a cliffhanger. And so for me, because I don't have the memory that you have, so I don't remember all the characters and I'm not like in that, in that emotion that I was in when I read that first book or that second book. So I will go back and reread the book to prepare for the release of the most recent one. If it's been, more than a month or so since I've read the last book, then I'll reread it so that I can be fresh. And it works. I like it. I enjoy doing it in that way, but I get that I'm unique in the way that I do it. So I don't know.
I'm a sucker for cliffhangers. I love them. So I will immediately go into like whatever book is next. Like I've been reading, it's YA, maybe a little more new adult, but it's The Black Witch Chronicles by Laurie Forrest.
Mm-hmm. I know
and I read book 1, it ended on a cliffhanger, and I immediately bought books 2 and 3. So I've been binging those. I guess it depends on the series if I will go back and reread it. So like for the From Blood and Ash books, when Gilded Bones came out, I reread books 1 and 2, but I don't know if I'll reread them this time. And then Crescent City, with the release of Sky and Breath, I just watched a recap video because that's a very dense book, and
Hey, Sam, you should just ask me. I could have given you like a 2-minute recap. Like the Sarah J. Maas hater in me could have just like went like, okay, girl, his best friend ends up murdering a bunch of people. You find out that I don't want to spoil it because people will hate on it.
I have to say that
there's a lot of alcohol is mentioned. Some characters die. A lot of other characters get introduced that have no point to the story, but then will have relevance in later books. And then you're gonna have to read another 800-page book.
That's pretty good, yeah.
See, I'm doing the good work.
Prepare for it. I'm rereading it next week. So.
Oh my gosh, no.
Be ready for it. So
I loved that book, but I can't do it. Not 800 pages. I can't.
Was it? I don't even remember it being 800. Was it that long? I don't remember. It was 800.
It's pretty big.
I remember every minute of the audiobook.
I bow down to both of you, all three of you, for reading them books, because Stephanie shall not. No.
You be on the sidelines on that one, Stephanie.
Well, I'll wave at y'all on the side. Yes, no,
that's fine. But let's talk about some of the pros and cons. I know we mentioned them a little bit as we've been talking about binging or not to binge. But are there any like pros that you like about binging, or any cons that you don't like about binging that we haven't talked about? That makes any sense. I can go, for instance, let's say one of the pros that if I stick with a series, it doesn't go on my like my graveyard, which is my Goodreads TBR, where it just like lingers for years and years and years. Because I'm the type of reader that like gets distracted by like a new book. I'm like, oh, let me go read that new book. But then it's true. But then what I do is, like, for any books I'm reading in a series, I try to lock myself in by buying, like, maybe 2 more books if they're available, or the audio, if the book or the audio book is out. Either one, I'll try buying that. So I'm like, okay, I'm pushing myself to read it a little bit more. But it normally ends up doesn't working like that, because as soon as I buy it, it's like the chase is over.
That's why you get them from the library. That is why you get them from the library. That way
it's the same thing with the library. As soon as I have the book in my hands,
time. You have a time limit though from your library. You have to turn that bad boy back.
I use my 3 renewals, and then I finally go. I have to read.
Then you finally are like, I guess I'm just not gonna read it. This is not gonna happen.
But yeah, so like there's some. So I'm trying very actively to like keep myself in these series and not go to other things, so I can like talk about it. Because when I talk about one book that I really loved in like a 10-book series that follows the same couple, I can't really say if I really love the series as a whole, if that makes any sense.
So a pro for me is that keep staying in the world, but at the same time, how does everyone feeling about or like a pros and a cons with series that are standalones? So like series that follow different couples, because that can be interesting as well and sort of be a pro for me. So like if I'm getting a series of books that follow different couples, like the secondary couple from book number 1 gets book number 2, and then there's another couple that's introduced, and then you have this huge world of families and things like that. I am like all for that. That's one of my catnips. I'm down for that. So what do you guys think about it?
So you
I
say
love
like
that.
you're going to binge those, Steph? Is that what you're saying? Like, so if it's an
Yes.
interconnected world,
Oh yeah, I would.
Yeah, different couples.
Those are
each book.
definitely ones that I would binge.
Yeah, I love that when like the parents get a book and then the kids get a book. Yep.
Yeah, I do like that. And I would need, but at the same time, I would need them not to necessarily have to be read together. So like a nice break of maybe the parents from the kids, just following the kids, maybe having a glimpse of the parents, but not necessarily revolving around the fact that I need to know how and what the parents went through to get to the kids type thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with you. I like both. I like the interconnected world, and I also like interconnected friend groups. You know, where each book, for example, is a standalone that ends in an HEA. But I also like when there's a plot that develops, sort of like Immortals After Dark, right? Like everything is independent. You can read them. You can't. You have to read them in order though, because there's that interconnected plot. I really appreciate that. Or like Helena Hunting the Puck series. I really like that they're like, it's a friend group. They're all connected. You don't have to know what's going on. So I definitely, it's all about, to me, it's about world building and immersing yourself in that world. So I really appreciate that. Do you disagree, Charles? What were you thinking?
Oh, nothing. Sam, you go.
We want to hear what you have to say, Charles.
Yes, you're part of the conversation.
Yes, we want to hear, Charles.
No, because I think I don't like binging at all. Like, I like my standalones. I like you do everything in one book. You set everything up that you need to be, and I don't need spin-offs of spin-offs of spin-offs of spin-offs of spin-offs. If that makes okay. It's just because I like standalones. I like
sense.
one book. I don't like any other film. I like you can include secondary storylines, but I like one book. You do that world and then you move on to the next world instead of like pushing out like 20, 30 books in one continuous world where everyone's connected and every book has like, oh my goodness, stop. Even if it follows a different couple, I'm more of like, give me a really good standalone. And that's why I think a lot of times I grift to either standalones or novellas. They're just like one novella and done. Because I like to just, one story, I got what I needed. Now I can go experience another book, another story, instead of being saddled, especially if you read paranormal romance, where you're saddled in like 20 plus book series. I'm like, oh man. Because then it becomes more like a chore, even if I love the world, sometimes I want to break from the world, but I don't want to feel like it's taking away from like experiencing new authors, reading new books. Because if I am stuck in every book that I read is like part of like a 5+ book series, I'm like, oh my goodness, come on. And that's why I feel like with different couples, that can keep you reading longer than if it was just one continuous couple, because you can go like, oh, book 1 didn't work for me, but I really like the couple in books 2 and 3, so maybe I'll continue to read those books. And authors know that, so they'll put those books way to the end of the series, so like they get that read through. So I'm like, I'm just not a fan. I like my standalones. I do not like binging. But that's just because I don't like commitment to series.
Don't you think
Sam,
that it's
becoming?
Don't you think it's like more so like happening with authors now that they really are writing at least trilogies, if not 4 or 5 books? Like it's like about like if you have dedicated readership that really wants to follow your books, that's more it's a captive audience, if you will. I feel like that's more common and popular than standalones where you just have a one and done, or if they originally contract for a standalone and it's got a popular fan base and people are following and really loving it, then they extend it. And you can kind of tell when that situation happens where they extend it to be multiple books. But I mean, I hate to say it in this way, but it feels a little bit like a way for an author to sell more books. I can think of a particular author that just recently released a series that's a spinoff from one of her other Mafia series, that she did it in 2 books, and people had a lot of thoughts around that because they felt like you could have done this in 1 book and you did it in 2 purposely, and you left me in sort of a cliffhanger when you didn't have to, and I feel like you did it just to sell another book, and that doesn't feel cool to some people. So I don't know if you guys feel like that or see that as well, but that's the trend I'm seeing.
You talking about Cora Riley?
Girl, no.
I was like,
I thought you were talking about Megan March.
We already know. As soon as you said that, I was like, that's Cora Riley. I know about this book.
I was trying to be careful.
I was like, you tried to be coy, but then you said
Sam was like, let's call a spade
for
a
a
spade.
popular author that was Mafia. I'm like, I think me and Sam were just like, that's Cora Riley.
Yeah.
That's definitely Cora Riley.
I haven't dived into her books, so I wouldn't know. But Megan March does it too, and I stopped reading her a while ago because of that, plus some other reasons, but mainly because of it felt really money grabby to do a whole bunch of duets when you could have just put it in 1 book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if it was a standalone, it would have been a lot better. But also, she has done a lot of books in that world. So, like, I mean, I am a sucker for like the spinoffs of the children, but sometimes it can be a little much. Like, maybe try something else.
Yeah, I think it's time for her to kind of graduate that, put it to bed. It's not a payday. Let's move on to something else. But the other thing, Steph, that you reminded me of that feels like money grubby to me that I really don't like, and it frustrates me, and especially because I tend to try to go into things knowing as little as possible so that I won't be spoiled, because I really like the surprise of it. So I just need to know the basic concept and then I'm good. And I don't like when they do duets, but the second book is from the point of view of, either the hero or the heroine. So it's a complete retelling of the first book. And you were just like, did you really just make me buy the second book thinking I'm going to get, a continuation of the story, or it's going to be something else? And it's really a recapitulation of everything I just read. Now I'm mad. I'm mad at you, And I'm seeing that like creep up. Not a lot, but enough where it's like irritating me,
Oh, yeah.
I feel like indies have really changed the series format in a lot of ways, because the way I think of series is, I guess some writers may think of this as well, like each book should function independent of its own. So like it should have its own arc, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying? And then like there's always like an overall arc for the series, if it's following different couples, if it's following the same couple, or if it's in the same world, where you feel like you get 1 book and then like you feel satisfied. You can go and just pick up that book. And I think you see that like fractured a little bit in the indie world. You either have a whole series that are interconnected standalones that all have their own definite HEA, but then you also have some other authors that will take one story and chop it up into 4 parts, add a little bit more filler. And so like for each book that you read, you don't actually get a complete story, even though it's like 1 book in a 4-book series. It's really part 1 of a story, and that allows you to get that rapid release, but you don't get that satisfaction as a reader. Like you pick up 1 book and they're like, ooh, I feel satisfied by that. Like I can take like the Percy Jackson series, or like or any other like traditionally published series. Like you can read 1 book and just go back to that 1 book and you still get a really great arc, but then you also get like an overall series arc that builds with each book. And I think you don't see that as much in indie. You either have those 2 avenues that authors tend to go to, which are very popular, and they do allow for rapid release.
But I also found that like in indies, especially, sometimes those big long series that have the twists and the turns and things like that, because I love her. So Alethea, she has what, 3 of them that are pretty massive series. And actually like 2 of them that are 5-book series, and then 1 that's a saga, or that I would say is a saga. that is 12 books. And, you know, each one of in that 12 book saga is four trilogies. And each one of those trilogies sort of stay with the one couple, and then it has like an overarching, but the three books really give they don't really feel like fillers. They don't feel like they're not necessary or anything like that. You have to read all three of them to really get that understanding for each one of those couples. And then once you read them all together in order, because you need to read them in order, Charles trying to jump in at episode like 3.
Hey, I read an epilogue to a couple that already had a book, and I did not realize, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll just go read their book now.
No.
it's no big deal to me.
But it is. And it's technically not written that way. It's technically written so that you could pick up any one of those 4 trilogies and be in the world. For the best enjoyment, though, you should start from the beginning. And I found that's sort of where I lie when it comes to binging and sort of feeling overwhelmed. Like everyone was like, oh, you need to read Black Dagger Brotherhood. And I read that first book and I was like, did we read the same book, people? Did we read the same book? Because I don't think we did, because I didn't like it. And that brings to mind another argument that lots of people like to have is, do you stay if the first book doesn't grab you and go to the second or the third book, because, you know, second and third book get better, right? I don't. That's a con for me. If I'm not digging the first book, I won't continue with a series. What about you guys?
So I feel like I want to jump in on this because I just had a conversation. I recommended A Throne of Glass to one of my friends, and A Throne of Glass, that first, I already see Steph's like, she's like, don't get me started. I'm like, but to me, Assassin's Blade, I hated that book. I was like, I didn't like Selena, or, you know, I just didn't like her. And I was like, I don't understand what all the hype is. Like, you know, you guys told me that this is a 5-star. Like, she gets on my nerves. She's annoying. They're like, no, stick with it. I promise it's going to get better. I got into the second book. I was like, I don't get it. I'm still frustrated. She gets on my nerves. I don't know, but I will hate read. So I just
That's a whole nother conversation right there, Josh. Woo!
Oh my God. And then I think I got into Queen of Shadows. I think that's the third book. And then I was like,
that's the 4th book, right?
I don't remember. No, is it
Air of Fire?
Air of Fire.
The green one is a 3rd.
Yeah.
Queen of
So
Shadows.
you read 4 books until you got invested?
I read them all because I was like, I trust.
Oh no, ma'am.
Friends,
oh no, ma'am.
Good. I like other books that they read, so I stayed with it. And by the time I made it to, you know, Kingdom of Ash, I was like, this is like the best ever. I absolutely loved it. First 2 books, I was just like, I want to tear my eyes out because she is making me nuts. But I hung in there. So I don't know what that says about me, but you know.
I will definitely give it, like, I'd say at least 3 books. Like, I tried the Badlands series? Stacey Marie Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, like, hyped up on TikTok. Like, people like, oh, the romance is so good. I read to book 3. There's still no romance. And I'm like, no, I'm done.
Wait, what was that author again?
Stacey Marie Brown.
Savage Lands.
It's new,
you know,
right?
That book that was like,
like 4
popular.
Books right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must have missed those. Those must not have been on my TikTok. Hallelujah.
Yeah. I even heard about them, and I'm not even on TikTok. I saw that book popping up everywhere. I'm like, I probably won't get to you. I like my standalones, but like, I'll put you on the back burner.
They ain't worth it.
Yeah.
And
but this is like one pro about if you do binge a series, or one thing about series that is a pro, that at least the romance genre has done really well, especially in the indie. I know we mentioned interconnected standalones, And those work perfectly because you can say, like, I didn't like book 1. Well, then book 2 is a whole completely new couple, new tropes involved. And so, like, how does that, like, when you accomplish a series like that, do you keep on reading? If you know, like, okay, book 4 is going to be this trope or this trope, do you continue on with those series, or do you still do that first 2 or 3 books, even though there could be, like, a book in that series that's, like, wildly different from the other books?
If I know that they can be read as standalones, I will skip around. Sorry, my cat is up here. Calm down.
You will skip around and read them if they can be read. Like there's no interconnected plot, so it's like, you know, it's just the world. Then you're totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Steph, for example, with the Black Dagger Brotherhood, like everybody sort of, you know, agrees that first book is not like the best of her writing, and it's not, you know, a good example of that. But because each book follows a different couple, like, would you be willing to? And it does read a little bit older, if you will, like early 2000s, like, if you will, like, so it's like the way that we write and the things that we're interested in has transitioned as we transition as a society. But would you ever do that? Because that's like one of the tried and true, tested, like stands the test of time. People love it. It has a solid fan base. Like you were just like, book 1, nope, you didn't catch me. Sorry, you missed the boat on me.
Pretty much. That
Even in that series, it jumps around to different characters. Like you don't actually get an HEA in each book, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you do. You get a happy.
You get like a happy for now, I believe, because they do appear. Couples do appear later on, right in the series. Same couples.
Well, what I'll say, what they do is you do get a happily ever after or a happy for now, if you will. But then the couples appear later because as couples sort of evolve, they have new challenges. You might get through that initial stuff, but later on, it might be around having kids, or it might be around, you know, where we live, or our, you know, profession, or our house, or whatever. And so she sort of, you know, introduces them again later with new sort of conflicts that they have to deal with together as a couple to kind of navigate through, while still seeing that ongoing plot developing of them against the lessers and all of that. But it's a good series. I don't know. So I'm hearing, Stephanie, you get one shot at me. Give me your elevator.
Well, I think that was the other thing, besides the fact that there's so many books, is that it seemed like there was too much going on within that first book. I was like, okay, why do I need to know about A, B, Z, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, elemental P, H, I, J, K. I was like, who am I supposed to focus on? Who am I supposed to focus on? This is supposed to be one book. If it's supposed to be about this one couple, I need to know about this one couple. I don't need to know about the rest of the alphabet. So so the way that you were just explaining it to me just puts that extra nail in the coffin.
Hey, that's fine. Whether you want to binge series or not to binge, or you don't binge authors backlist, or you don't, or you do, and do whatever you want. You can read however you want, but I'm curious for you guys watching this video. Let us know down in the comment section down below. Are you for or against binging? And I'm really curious to hear you guys' thoughts, but thank you so much to everyone who joined me on this video. It's been such an amazing time talking with you guys. I hope you guys had so much fun. And for anyone watching this video, if you want to find all our social media links, they'll be all down in the description box down below. If I forget, just yell at me and then I'll put them there. So you can go find everyone that's in this video, because you will absolutely love them. But thank you guys so much again for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys in another video. Bye, everyone.
Bye.